Hello and welcome to another microfocus webinar. My name is Tan Fan. Today's webinar is on how to integrate ALMQC with ALM Octane so that you can have both microfocus solutions available and talking to each other. The topics will be on the following. First, how to use MF Connect to sync defects and requirements. Then we talk about how to set up the test run injector so that you can see the run results in Octane. And then how to use CI integration to execute a test set within Octane. I will first go over some slides and then followed by a demo. So here is a basic flow chart of how MF synchronizer works. Here in this diagram, we have two endpoints. Here we have MQC, and then on the right we have value ALM Octane. In the middle we have MF Connect, which is our synchronizer. In this example, we have a user log into MQC and create a defect. A sync is done. MF connects, detects the creation of defects, and it will go ahead and create the same defect in Octane. A user can then log into Octane and update the phase to open and owner to a particular user. A sync is done again. This time MF Connect detects that Octane defect has changed, and then it will proceed to update the same link defect in QC. Here, when we set up the connections, we set up the field mapping so it knows to map phase to status in QC and owner to sign to in QC as well. A user can then log into QC and change the status to fix. Another sync is done, and this time MF Connect detects that the defect has been changed again, and then we'll update the phase in Octane to fix as well. So that's a very basic flow how MF Connect synchronizing works. For test injections, we will need to set up some, we will need to log in the site administration to do the setup first. Once the setup is done, at the timely info, it will then sync tests executed by MQC user and push the result to Octane, and the user can in Octane can then see the results of the tests executed in ALM. For CI integrations, this requires Jenkins setup. Here, for example, I will need to install Jenkins in-house, install plugins, create jobs. Once that is done, from Octane, we can add the CI server and then create a pipelines, configure pipelines, run the pipelines. And then once all that is set up and collecting information, we can analyze the result in Octane. So that's pretty much a very general, brief description of how the integration works. So how do we implement the three integrations? And that's be part of our demos. Before we begin to set the integrations, we need to create the API key for both endpoints. In Octane, we need to go into our shared space and navigate to APIs access, and then click on create API key. I've created an API key already, so we can just have a look at that. In this example API key, I give it a workspace admin for my workspace I intend to do a sync with. And because I'm going to do CI integration, I also added a CI/CD integration role to the same workspace. So once the API key is created, you need to make sure that you save it somewhere. because you're going to need to use it later on. For ALM, you need to do the same thing. You need to go into the KeyCBin directory here. Click on API key. Once you log in, you click on the API key, give it some name, select a users, and click on create. Make sure the user you selected have access to the workspace you intend to sync. It will create you an API key and secret. Go ahead and just save it somewhere again. And once you have that, we can then proceed with the next step. Okay, so in order to have MF Connect, you can go to Marketplace and download and install locally on your machine. Or you can, if you have SaaS, you can also request MF Connect to be installed on SaaS. Once you have MF Connect installed, because out of the box, it already has the connector for AMQC and Octane, you don't need to install any additional connectors. So you just navigate to data source and create a new data source for Octane and QC. To do that, just click on add new data source. And then for ALM, you want to select the Micro Focus ALM. And for Octane, you want to select ALM Octane. I've already created a data source here. For example, since I'm using instead of AMQC on my machine, it's just the protocol will be HTTP, and then I have the host name and a port as 8082, and then I have username and password. If you have QC on SaaS, it'd be slightly different. The protocol will be HTTPS. The host name would be whatever you have, the instance you have on SaaS, and the port would be 443, and you have your API key and password. If authentication is successful, you can then see your domain and your projects as you proceed with the on the next step. For Octane, it's to be the same thing. You need to provide the URL of the Octane server, and then the client ID and client secret. Once that's entered and authentication is successful, you can then see your shared space ID and your sample workspace and your default release for sprints. So that's how you create a data source for your two endpoints, QC and Octane. Next, you will need to do a user mapping, a one-to-one user mapping, because the user in QC may be different than in Octane. For example, in QC, my user will be, as you see, SAS_Tfon, but in Octane, it will be my email address. So here I have my email address and identify my data source as my Octane data source and my login using my QC data source. So once I create the data source and user mapping, I will go to connection and create a new connection. To create a new connection, I click on plus, add connections, and then I give it a connection name and I specify my master data source and my target data source. Normally, the master data source would be your Micro Focus applications. In this case, both Quad Center and Octane are Micro Focus products, so you can choose either one as your master. The target normally be your third-party tools. I've already created an example connection, so let's have a look at that. So when I create new connections, it automatically give me defect and requirements, but I can also add other entities as well. But here, this is be just a simple demo, so I will just accept default. I can then edit the field mapping and then click on auto field mapping, and it will give me some field mapping as well. Here are the fields I decide to map. Notice that I also included two user-defined fields. Both of them are basically used to store my Octane ID and my defect ID in QC, so I know where the defect is coming from. And I also add some user fields, such as detected by and owner. And once I do my field selection, I click OK, and then I will need to proceed with also doing my uh, list item mapping. So I need to do this for all the lookup lists. And then once I'm done with that, I'll proceed to the same thing with requirements, and then click on next. In the projects and rules tab, I can then decide what workspace I want to synchronize with what projects in QC. So here I select my Octane workspace and my QC projects. And if needed, I can then go down below bottom and then specify my criteria and calculate values. Here I'm doing very simple stuff, so I'm not going to do anything here. I'll just click on save, and I have my connection created. For our demo, I will just log into QC and then do a sync. Log in QC's create defects and then do a sync. So here I have Quality Center. I will go ahead and proceed with the defect modules and then create a new defects. So here I just created defect number 9. Notice that the Octane source ID here is blank. So my expectation here is that when I do a sync, defect 9 should be uploaded to Octane, and then from Octane I will get the ID of defect 8, which I submitted previously. So let's go back to our ALM Connect Synchronizer. Click on the gear icon and do run one iteration. Here I haven't set up to run at a time interval, so that's why I'm just saying running it one iteration here. So you can see that it has started. I just click on reload to refresh the data. It start running. It's completed. I navigate to audit tabs, click on run. Let's see what it did. So here it updated one defect, but we didn't actually submit a defect from QC. So let's have a look at why. Most likely because we haven't refreshed, but let's see here. Okay, it updated the defect I expected, so I just refresh again, and this time hopefully we do a sync. You can see it can see that we submit a new defect as well. Again, we're just going to refresh. Okay, it's running. Okay, hopefully this time it's detected that we have submitted defect, which it did, and so it added a defect. Okay, if I go back to ALM, I can I will need to go back to my workspace first. And go to the issues modules. And here we can see that a new defect has been added. Okay, so that's a very simple flow of how MF Connect works. So let's look at the next items on our list, which is test injection. For test injection, we need to set up something on the server first. So we need to go in site administration and add two site parameters. So Octane underscore integration underscore enable, set to yes to enable the features. And then Octane underscore integration underscore job underscore interval to specify the time interval. The minimum is 10 minutes, but probably recommend 30 minutes for best performance. So once we set up and enable the parameters, we want to go on the server as well and make some changes in our configuration files. So on the server, we want to go to the Octane int-config.xml files. Here we're looking at the template, which is where the example exists, but what we want to do is actually modify not the template files, but actually the actual configuration XML files. In the configuration files, we want to specify the proxy if we need to specify the proxy informations. And then on the Octane tag, we need to identify the Octane server. So again, we need to provide the identity key and secret again that we created earlier. And for server URL and shared space IP, we look at the IP address, the URL of our server, which is this. And this will be the 322.0.0.6 is our shared space ID. We need to enter that information in our configuration files. And then we also need to do the project mapping. So we need to identify the main and project in QC and the workspace that in Octane that we want to map the project to. Again, the workspace ID be the number after the shared space ID. And then below that, we have our filters settings. So you can just log into the test grid tabs, create a filter, and then paste the filter here. And then below that, we have our field mappings for our use-defined fields and also for our phase or status mapping as well. So all of this configuration you can do within the Octane configuration files. And once you have that set up, the test injection will run at a timely interval. And so what you need to do as a user is log into QC, run your test set, and at the timely interval, the test injection will be executed, and the result will be then saved into the quality modules under the sign. If you don't want to be on a sign, you can always create rules. For example, I create rules here, and so that when it's run, it's know where to place the records. So in ALM test injection, for example, my test runs will be added as automated runs. This including manual tests, by the way. So you have manual tests and you include it in the test injection. It will also be migrated here. And you'll see that all the runs, automated runs, all the runs will be as automated runs, and then you'll see all the tests be automated tests as well. It will also add a test suite as well, so just be aware it add a test suite as well for your test set if you run a test set. So that's very simple setup of how to set up the test injection. So basically, you set up site parameters, do the configurations, run your test set, and at a time interval, the test run results will be added to your Octane workspace. So now let's have a look at Jenkins integrations. For Jenkins integrations, of course, you need to have Jenkins installed. Here I have Jenkins installed. The first thing I do is, of course, I need to configure install plugins. So I will go to Jenkins, manage Jenkins. So Jenkins, manage Jenkins, and then go down the bottom. I will then go to manage plugins. And then underneath here, I will want to install a Micro Focus plugins. It'll be called Micro Focus Application Automation Tools. The latest version is 7.2. So once I have the plugin installed, I need to configure it. So on the application lifecycle management, I will add an entry for my ALM server. So here, example, I give a name, my URL, my API key, and secret. Since I'm using a local instance of ALM, I can also add a local instance as well. And similar concept for Octane. I will go ahead and give the URL of Octane, including my shared space ID, and then enter my secret and client ID and secret. For Octane, you can test the connection, make sure that it's working fine. So once you have QC and AM connection made, you then want to go ahead and create a job. So you click on new items and create a new job. So here I have an example already created. In the job, I basically added a build step called execute microfocus functional test from microfocus ALM. Here, since I want to execute a AM test set, I need to provide the AM server, which I just configured, and then the username or password or API sequence, API key and secret, and then I need to provide the domain and projects, and then I need to specify what test set I want to execute. Here I have a test set path. Each line can be a different test set you want to execute. And if you were to log into ALM, and you can navigate to test set, and this is what the path looks like. So it's root, demo, test set folders, and then my test set name. So once everything's set up, last step is I want to make sure that the result of the test execution get published back to Octane and QC. So I need to make sure I add this last action, post build action. And that's pretty much it for the job. I then save, applied. And then within Octane, I need to, of course, connect to the CI server. To do that, I need to go into my Octane workspace. Go to DevOps, CI server, and click on Add CI server. And if the connection is successful, you will see your CI server in the drop-down list and just give a name. I have here an example already. So once everything's set up, I can go to my pipelines. Click on Add Pipelines, and from the drop-down CI servers, I click on my local Jenkins server instance, and I will see a list of my jobs. I can then add this job, and then I can see it within the pipeline modules. I can then select to run the jobs for my Jenkins pipeline modules. And you can see here that it will start to kick off your jobs from within Jenkins. And then you can then view the status of your jobs. Once it's finished completed, you can see the bill, you can see the Jenkins logs, etc. When you run a pipeline within Jenkins, it will also add an automated test in the quality modules. So here you can also again create another jobs so that it will know where to add the tests in your quality modules. For example, here I create a jobs, so it places a create a rule so it know when what job executed, it will place the automated test here. Then I can drill down and see the test run results as well from within Octane. Similarly, within ALM, you can still see that run results. So if you navigate to ALM, you can drill down to your test set, click on your test cases, and then go to the run tabs. You can see the run result from QC as well. So for this CI integrations, it works both ways. You can see you can execute in ALM or you can execute it in Octane, and you can also execute in Jenkins. So this all the results will then get saved back to both locations, and that's pretty much how we want to set up the CI integrations. So to summarize, we did a number of things. We demo how to set up MF Connect to sync defect and requirements, and then we went over how to use test injector to inject run results to Octane, and then in the CI integrations, we kind of demo how to set up Jenkins to allow you to run and schedule test set execution from within Jenkins, and to also do the same from Octane using the CI pipeline integrations. And that's pretty much it. Conclude our demos. Thank you for viewing this webcast, and hope to see you next time. Bye.